all know the sole reason for our practice is so simple: happiness of us and ourselves and others. I wanted to be happy. I wanted a smiling, energetic, spirited face. I wanted a mind free of tension. I wanted a carefree but not reckless attitude. I wanted to be youthful. I saw all of this on the faces of IWDs to the first friendship meeting I attended back in 2003, and I joined the practice. My experience is today about my search for that Buddha soul, mind and face within myself. My life, like most of us, or like Steve Jobs calls it, is about connecting the dots. In fact, all dots in our lives leave an impression. Either they topple us, only to make us get up again, or they make us learn how to jump over them. And later you can connect those dots and realize that your course of life. The dots in my life have been: first, a childhood in which I was a reserved, non-talkative, underconfident, lonely child who at that time didn't understand issues of family and did not realize that family troubles had really affected her. Adolescence, in which the quest of finding my worth through architecture, my chosen field, was over-obsessive and made me realize that I can be possessed, a nervous wreck, and begrudge myself far too much. Third, freshly out of my master's, with dream as high as a mountain, with hope for the best, a desire of fulfilling relationship, not like the one I had seen before in my growing years, but only to be struck with part of my biggest calamity, annulment of a fraud marriage. Fourth, my search again for myself, now with a new baggage, but also with a feeling that there is an opportunity hidden in all of this. As a shy, reserved child, I was an unhappy, lonely kid. But with growing years, I had to face up and gear up to change this. I was blessed with my chosen field of architecture, and through architecture study, I tried to express myself. I became more vocal and opinionated. I aimed for higher goals. I aimed to prove my worth to myself. In my obsession of self-identity, excellence, and finding to prove myself, at least through work, because I had no confidence in any other aspect of my life, I put in more than 100% only to work and study. And believe me, that is not a healthy attitude for a growing adult. It is during the same period that I took up the Buddhist practice after the first friendship meeting. During this academic period of my life, I was forced to handle myself in three major obstacles. First was my dissertation in the last years of architecture. It was a subject close to my heart. I got my director of the college as my guide, who was known to be extremely strict, and I was the lone student under his guidance. I struggled immensely to meet his expectations. There were times that we both would have virtual fights in his office discussing my dissertation. I did get bogged down by his constant criticism, and I was given the guidance to pray for his happiness and to chant to understand what he's really trying to convey. In the process, I became more vigilant and prepared. I always used to make bullet points on paper before discussing any issue with him. One could never lose talk with him. He became a blessing in disguise for me and taught me how to research, how to present, and how to think in a logical fashion. He, to my complete surprise, did also make me top the dissertation. Now I can look back and say that he's one of the best teachers I have encountered, and I needed the wisdom to appreciate his ways, which I did by chanting, praying, and exerting myself fully in the practice. The second was my architectural thesis. The karmic tendency of being nervous and underconfident repeated itself once again in my thesis. I was obsessed and nothing I would produce would be good enough. I had almost isolated myself from social and public activities. I did not know what was happening in my home, my college, or in lives of the limited friends that I had. I would have worked 24 hours if not more. But even then, I wasn't able to produce a tangible outcome. I was as possessed. My guide kept discouraging me and kept pushing me to give it the next year. I kept chanting, not so much with assertion and certainty, but sometimes even as plea. I chanted because it gave me peace of mind. It gave me moments when I could think afresh. I had members sitting in this room sitting with me and chanting with me. We chanted almost every morning for at least an hour. Still not much production. I was almost on the verge of giving up but the DNA that we all are made of never lets you quit. On the last day of submission, when the externals had to come, I had to give my jury. A thesis coordinator called me 5 in the morning to inquire whether I'm submitting. I just had to. I got up and said, yes, I am. In a matter of 5 hours, I would have produced so much work that I would have been done in the last 20 days. I went with all my work complete, even more than others, and did a fairly decent job at my jury. It would have been better had I not been a nervous wreck in the last 6 months ago. What this experience taught me that nothing in life, or anything in life, is really not about being the best, but it's about doing your best. You should never make the result our only focus. That does not let you enjoy the process of doing that work. More than destination, the journey is always important. The third was my master thesis. Now, weakness and karma never leaves you, and you have to really work on it day and night and keep polishing yourself, and they keep reoccurring till you eradicate that karma. So in Masters 2, there is this thesis, and by the trend of my style of working, you could guess what it would have been. This thesis was immensely important to me, and this time not for the result, but for the subject. I was working towards designing an equitable society with a pro-poor approach towards my design project. It was an extremely difficult subject, never taken up before in urban design thesis. I can say I gave it my best. The site was difficult, it was in a poor industrial area of Delhi that I was planning to revitalize. It wasn't a favorable one for women to walk alone, but I was determined to know the people, the context, and the situation that I'm designing for. I did lots of site visits, I roamed in almost each and every lane, and became familiar with the problems and the needs. I have a tendency to be so fully absorbed in my work that I tend to forget the world around me. This doesn't quite prove healthy for me, but I did the same act again. I drowned myself in my work and almost was in my hostel room for long hours or in the library. In my obsession with work, my mind again races. I get a lot of ideas, but I'm not able to explain them in a comprehensive way. That becomes a major drawback. Well, of course, I finished my thesis with all sorts of struggle with myself. It went well. I did not stop this, but what I got was an even bigger reward. I got a scholarship and opportunity to work on a similar issue of poor and equitable development in South Africa. I had, in a matter of no great attention, submitted an online form for the scholarship, and I got selected to work for a month with 75 varied and diverse professionals from all over the world. We worked in the slum in South Africa, and this reward meant far, far greater than what a thesis goal meant would have given. From those 5 students, I got further selected to represent the studio in Italy, and I got the opportunity to meet the masters, the deans of every important design schools, mayors of Latin American states, people from UN, etc. I was living with them for 2 weeks. It was an environment full of motivation and vision for a change in society. This was back in 2007. Recently, last December 2010, I was desperately praying and looking for some course, something that I could go abroad and study. And out of utter amazement, a girl who apparently I had met during my term in South Africa, but of whom I had no memory of, sent an invite for a course. It was in Germany, a short diploma on sustainable urban design. I quickly decided that this was just meant to me. I was so happy that this angel has suddenly appeared, and after 3 years of us meeting has mailed me just the thing that I needed at that point of my life. My application got selected for the course, and I had the bestest time in Dresden, Germany. After the course, I had an opportunity to travel together with my elder sister, who also by chance was in Italy for a conference while I was studying in Germany. We together did a Europe trip and had time of our life. She got married when I was in 6th standard, and this trip was a great opportunity for us to reunite. Working since almost 4 years, I try to keep a check on my weakness of not obsessing about work. I try to laugh more, I try to enjoy more. I feel I'm living now. Mind is much richer when you're relaxed. I try not to focus on the reward and always work for the pleasure of work requires. I remember once in a meeting a leader once said to me, "Nidhi, more important than to be an intellectual person is rather to be a happy person." So now I take my moments and always strive to be a happier person. There was one more reason why I chose to be a happier person, and believe me, it's a choice we make. After my master's in 2007, at home we decided it was the right time for marriage. In 2008, I did marry, a marriage that was a fraud, and later in the same year was annulled. In this experience, I'm choosing not to share the brutalities of that period, but rather the lessons that I learned. I was a 26-year-old hit with large realities of life, and somehow had to have the courage to face them. I didn't have the strength to make that decision initially. I was fighting alone in a new city without my family being physically there with me. I had to convince the world, and more than that myself, that the decision I was about to take was the right one. I called a senior in Delhi. He heard me for a good 40 minutes, and the only line he said was, "Once you stand up, the whole world will follow." That did it for me. I didn't care of the world or what people would say. I stood up. I got annulment within a month, which has never happened in the history of Indian law. I came back to Delhi with some fear of unacceptance. I faced all of this. I was constantly advised to get married, find a boy, or go abroad, go study, and then find a boy. Strategies which people would spill out of their sleeves. I took a job in Gurgaon and moved out of the house. I got some time to relax and rethink a lot of things of my life. So I practically lived off my car, which had piled of clothes and shoes just in case I choose to go at a friend's house, come spend back night in my sake, or go to Mohoso. It was a dormant phase. I reunited with my friends. I learned how to relax, something which I'd completely forgotten in my years of youth and college, being possessed with work. I started taking care of my physical self, which I had also forgotten during my college years. I always took food as a comfort food. For the first time, I, with all seriousness, took care of myself. After a year of this dormant phase, where probably I was seeking all the nourishment and rejuvenation, I took up another job for which I had to go to Oman. I stayed there for 7 months and had a wonderful practice with members there. It's thrilling how we can so easily be at ease and comfortable and do this happy anywhere we go. It was a lot of work and a lot of self-time in Oman. I wished for lots of things to change in my life, but sometimes we always don't have the answers and strategies. But I was on a timeout with myself. I realized all my growing years I was tired of constant pressure. Sometimes the pressure that I induced on myself, and sometimes the pressure others induce on you. This may not appear as a very flashy experience, but I think it's the biggest transformation I as an individual ever had. After that unfortunate incident, I gave myself a second chance. A chance where I decided I would live my life to the fullest. I would work towards smaller, intangible things that were missing in my life. I started speaking to people, I started speaking to my family, I started smiling, I started taking time out, I started to exercise, I started to eat proper, I started to take more chances, and I started to think holistically. When I was in Oman, I reconnected with a acquaintance that I met in 2009 at a friend's party. At that time, he was with someone else and my attention too was somewhere else. We didn't talk much. We had some professional exchange and a few talks in a couple of next months, which fizzled as admiration. In 2010, we started speaking, first through mails and then on phone. We fell in love. Love was a feeling I'd almost given up on. But it unraveled itself so smoothly and with complete ease. I was in love with a man that I always wanted. I came back to Delhi, our families agreed, and we got married in February. There's a poem which I would like to say by R.W. Emerson, which I would try to sum up my experience with. It talks about success and about being happy, and I think that's the meaning which I've now taken off life for. To love often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find best in others, whether by a healthy child, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, or a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has been easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. I have a long way to go. I go through my times of self-doubt and begrudging, but I bounce Rituals Buddhism gave me that platform, and I'm aiming to continue this process.